Hi everyone, welcome to Square Cycle, a community of strategic minds for startup and scale-up people. Here we bring together founders, board leaders, and investors to share how they grow, lead, and evolve their businesses. Hosted by Mario Rivas, let's get started. I'm Mario Rivas, founder of Square Cycle, CEO of Startup Global, and business advisor across sectors. I'm excited here and delighted to welcome Percy Grundy. He's a seasoned CEO, investor, and board member with over 2 decades of experience leading technology companies across Africa, Latin, Europe, and the Middle East. He has built and scaled multiple ventures, including FlowLive, which raised over 100 million in growth funding, and now Anga AI, focused on next generation AI agents for telecom networks. His cross-sector journey from leading billion-dollar operations at Telecom and Digital Group to serving as an executive director and angel investor across different companies. Welcome, Percy. Very nice.
Thank you very much, Mario.
Here.
Thank you for the intro. Happy to be here.
How was this path in where you moved from the developer to become a CEO, have your own startup, raise, 100 million with your startup? I know that you were as a board director, but still you were there taking the strategic decisions. And telling us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. No, that's a great question. So I started very young as a developer, but was a developer in the 80s, right? I was a bit of an unusual kid, I think, growing up in Bolivia back then, because there were not a lot, other kids who spend the afternoons and the weekends sitting in front of. Started with an Apple II computer. Then I got access to a Commodore and finally to PCs, right? And I got a passion for it from very young. I learned, I was self-taught, right? I got hold of programming books in BASIC mainly and just read it and start trying things, and that's how I got started, and that's what I did during high school as well. Participating in science fairs with different schools, and I actually got to know a few other people my age doing the same. There was very, very few of us in La Paz, Bolivia. So that took me when it was time to study. I went to university and I studied what's called systems engineering, which is really kind of computer science, but with some engineering elements. And I did that for my first degree, right? After that, I actually went to consulting, but in the consulting, I was still developing. My first real job was in PwC, right? But I was, for the consulting arm of PwC, I was building software that they were selling to customers, payroll systems and things like that. After working there for a couple of years, actually, I was recruited by an energy company, right? This was like at this point, late 90s. It was a boom, right? It was like a lot of natural gas was discovered in Bolivia, and so I went into that industry, and it was like a very good industry to work in, but I wasn't very happy in it. I didn't enjoy it. It's actually an industry where you didn't make any software. You just bought software from very large companies where there was not a lot of room for creativity, right? And I didn't particularly connect with the industry, right? But I felt I was in a little bit of a trap, because I was, after a few years doing that, I was the IT manager of an international oil company that was like a very good job to have in Bolivia, right? And I was in a little bit of a trap because I wanted to do other stuff. But I couldn't find a better job, right, than that in Bolivia. So I said, okay, I have to go back to study, right? That's the only way. So, and I applied to MBAs, right? So that's how I came to London. I came to do an MBA at London Business School in 2002, right? And and that I did that for a couple of years. It was a fantastic experience, not just the learnings and the expanding my mind to understand not just about technology, which is what I had done for all my life at that point, but about business and strategy and finance and all these things, and meet fantastic people that became I've made many lifelong friends this couple of years. And after that, I went, yeah.
No, it was like, because you explained a little bit your journey from Bolivia to London.
Yeah.
And then when did you start the FlowLive?
FlowLive was 10 years later.
10 years later, okay.
Yeah, because I graduated from business school in 2004, and then I joined the telco industry, right? So I worked for 3 different telco companies in those 10, 11 years, and in different parts of the world as well. And then after those years started FlowLive in 2015.
And then FlowLive came and you started like the business from scratch, I imagine, right? You started because you moved from corporate to the startup world. And then how long it took you to grow, FlowLive in a few $1 million, company revenue?
That was it wasn't easy, right? I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I knew some of the theory, and I definitely knew the industry very well at that point, because FlowLive, of course, is in the telco industry. I wasn't alone, which I think was a good thing. So I had a co-founder of the company that we worked very closely from the beginning, and we had another, let's say, co-founding group around us. We raised a small amount, and then we got going, right? We set up a team of developers in India. We got our first version of the product, and with this we were able to raise a 4 million round.
When was that? When was that? Which year was that? When you raised the 4 million?
The 4 million was late 2016 or early 2017, around that period.
So basically, after 1-2 years of building the company, you raised your first 4 million, right? To start expanding basically the business.
Yeah, to get it, let's say, kind of serious, right? And that's going. We started having sales team in different parts around the world, basically, and we pivoted as well, because we had started more from a big data for IoT angle. And then while serving our first real customer, we realized that they hadn't have the connectivity, the connectivity with MNOs, or what they had was MNOs is a mobile network operator, so for the technical term. What they had for connectivity was very limited. So we said, okay, if there's an opportunity here, we started helping that first customer with the connectivity side, and then we realized that's where the big opportunity was. So we pivoted from big data for IoT to actually IoT connectivity, right? Around the time that more or less coincided with the raising of the 4 million.
And how many people are now working in FlowLive?
Now it's above 100 people.
100 people, wow. I heard that the FlowLive also raised 100 million, I think.
Yeah, so there was this 4 million round, that there was one that the next round was 21 million. Then we had 40 million, more or less, round, and then we had some, let's say, follow-up rounds after the 40 million. So it's a Series C company now, and it's raised over 100 million.
Wow. But the 100 million in total, or the last round was?
In total.
In
total. Yeah.
And wow, very good experience. I imagine like all the lessons learned and everything. Yeah. And now you are not anymore the CEO.
No.
It's been a long journey, almost 9 years or 10 years of the business. You are sat as a board director, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Driving the strategic decisions. When did that happen? When did you move into this role? And how do you feel now that you have basically, you were capable to delegate, give this to other people, drive the business? Maybe you thought there are other people who have better skills and capabilities than you, for example?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. It wasn't an easy or simple process, right? Many things happen in between, and I think I could write a book of going through that, right? But basically, what happened is we started bringing institutional investors in the bigger rounds, right? And being completely honest, they felt that for the next stages of growth, they need a different profile, right? So, I had discussions with the board, and then, I stepped aside and became a board member, and a fantastic CEO. He's really good. Was recruited, right, and he's taken the company to the next level of growth. And as a shareholder, I'm very happy. Of course, as a more at a personal level, it wasn't easy, right, to go through that process. But I think it was a big lesson for me, and I can say, look, I agree with the decision. I agreed at the time, and I agree now. The company has done fantastically well under new leadership, and it's allowed me to do other stuff as well. It's giving me, it's been it's the way it happened, and
but it's good. I think it's good because allows you to sit back now, moving to you are quite senior as well, and I imagine that now you are because you are in the board now, right? You are driving the strategy, plus you are one of the founders. And I know that it's not, I'm also like a CEO, and I also like running businesses. I like to be the owner, but I realized by the time, that delegating is the best thing to do, and also to delegate that someone, performs or have, better capability than me. Just with having we can say a more business mindset in that sense, because in the end, it's what is the best for the business, right? Not what is the best for me.
Yeah, exactly. We were trying to create value, right? And I can say in the case of FlowLive, the value is being created, and it continues to be created. So as a shareholder of the company, that is, I think, I'm a board member as well, but most importantly, as a shareholder, I'm very happy.
Yeah, you are you're a founder, and then now that you are sat there, how do you see your role as a board member? Which are your key tasks? What do you oversee?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and perhaps I can use two examples here, because in the case of Flow, I'm of course I moved from management to being a board member, but I've also have experience as a non-executive independent board member, right? And I think it's slightly different, right? In the case of Flow, where I'm in the cap table, right? I'm quite involved both as a shareholder but also as somebody who knows the history of the company from day one, right? Because I basically was the first employee of the company. I have this insider view, right, that I can bring from the outside, right, and ask questions and try to understand the long-term strategy. At the same time, support the CEO, especially if the results are helping them. So you, of course, you provide your support, but you also ask the difficult questions in terms of timelines, in terms of profitability, in terms of some, you make strategy decisions together as a board. So the CEO comes in and presents and said, I want to invest more in this, or I want to focus more on this market, or I want to make changes in the team of this other market. And of course, this is all discussed. And then 90% of the time, the board goes with what the CEO says, right? But sometimes things are challenged as well, and then recommendations are made. A group process, of course, with the CEO and all the other board members, which might have different angles, right? In the case of Flow, all the board members are shareholders or are representing the VC firms that are part of the company, but they came at different times, right?
How is that relationship? Because that's, generally when you are in an enterprise, or which is one by one family, you have a board, right? But every board director is there because of their expertise, so they can add value as an strategic advisor. But when you have VCs who are shareholders, they're advisors, but at the same time, they have accountability, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there is this bias or this politics inside of the board.
Yeah.
How was the politics side, or the strategy behind all of this between the different boards to say, look, let's go for 100 million. We need this. And how everyone was aligned, which was the strategic side of the business?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? And first of all, at some level, you're always aligned because you're always trying to maximize value, right? And we're all shareholders and we all want the company to do well. So in that sense, it's easy to find alignment. What might be sometimes slightly different, and the discussions are there, is the timelines. For the founders and for the early VCs, maybe the value that has been realized already it feels quite good, right? While for later VCs, they say, okay, I came at a higher valuation. So for me, for this to make sense, it needs to go to an even higher valuation, which would be okay for everybody. But it's perhaps slightly different in the sense like, look, I've realized very good value from this investment or from the founding shares in the case of the founders. And whatever upside after this is welcome, but it's reached this point for me. And if you're a late entering VC, everybody's in the positive, so the company's worth more than any of the evaluations that were paid in between. But it might be like, yeah, that's not the kind of multiple I want. I want a higher multiple. So there might be different points of view in terms of the timelines, right? However, what happens is these things are put on the table, right? That's what happens in the board meetings, right? And different angles are presented. And in the case of my board, and I think that's very healthy, everybody speaks their mind. So yeah, there's always politics, but I think the politics when they are out in the open, right, are much better than when they are, so I think every board member speaks their mind and they say, look, this is what I think. And then, so that's how you reach to a consensus, right? Sometimes it's not that the consensus happens from one day to another, right?
In this case, it was a consensus because I think the performance of the business was doing well.
Exactly.
You were quite aligned.
It's a good problem, right? It's a good problem. I've been as well in part of startups that haven't done very well, and the discussion is, should we keep on putting money into this, or should you just let it fail, right? Or that's it.
I have friends they pass through that, like the investors who are shareholders and are at the board, for example, they didn't want to raise the next round. They needed around 10 million. They said no.
Yeah,
we are not gonna do it. We are not gonna back up this. Let's leave it here, and they had to close the company. They didn't do it.
Yeah, and to be honest, that kind of story is a lot more common than the success story, right? So what I'm trying to say is exactly that. Whatever is a discussion that might have, is much easier to have a discussion. Look, we want to keep on growing aggressively for the next few years, and therefore we need this additional funding, or no, let's try to break even sooner and then be less aggressive with the growth, but more aggressive with the margins, right? This kind of discussion is a lot easier discussion. It's like, I always use this term, it's a good problem, right? It's very different than and I've been
the other way
and part of startups where the discussion is, look, we're gonna run out of money in a couple of months, and then what should we do? Should we put more of our own money? Should we try to bring it somebody else? Should we just let it fail, right? And I think VCs are kind of comfortable with failure as well, right? I think it's a bit different from an angel investor, and you don't have the scale. And I've done a few investments, and when one of them, I've done some that didn't work, right, and failed, and it's painful, right, when you think in your little portfolio, right? But they are playing a different game. They're playing a numbers game, right? So they want every investment that they take to take risks, right? To take a large amount of risks, because they're not playing the game of, look, we have a portfolio and we don't want any company to fail. They're playing a game. We have a large portfolio with many companies, and we just need a few of them to blow up, right, and become really, really big, and that's what pays off for the whole fund, right? And I've seen it, right? There's funds that have invested early in Revolut, for example, right? 90% of their investments can do not so well, but you have one Revolut early stage in your portfolio, and then your fund is going to be very successful, right? And in a way, when you're an angel investor, that's what you expect as well. But because the size of your portfolio is small.
Yeah, but that's why
the numbers game is in a different scale,
Yeah, that's why in the end everyone does the same, but with different amount of money. It's diversifying the portfolio. Now you have the FlowLive raised the money. Now you have a good team. It seems that the business is doing very well. Which are like the key challenges now for FlowLive in terms of revenue, in terms of client acquisition or expansion, scaling? Tell us a little bit more about how is your footprint worldwide, and what's next?
Sure. One thing that FlowLive has done very well is having a real global footprint, right? Good customers in North America, Europe, Asia is slightly smaller, let's say, for the size of the market, but definitely growing, right? And Latin America as well, and some business in Africa. So there's revenue coming from all parts of the world, right? And this is supported as well with for an investment in infrastructure that has been key, because the way IoT connectivity works, at least in the FlowLive model, is capacity is acquired from the MNOs on a bulk, right, on a wholesale basis, and sold to the customers that normally need global connectivity, right? They have devices that could end up anywhere. To guarantee the best connectivity, you actually have to have, and I don't want to get too technical, but you actually have to have some network elements physically close to the devices. So that's one thing that Flow has done very well, has built points of presence all around the world. And what that turns into is very good latency for the customers. So you could, let's say, power a device, with a local MNO in the UK, and you could send it all around the world, and it's going to roam, right? First, roaming is normally more expensive and has limitations, like you cannot roam forever, right? So that can be a limitation. But also, basically, when you're roaming, you're going back to the host network, back and forth, right? And that makes the whole latency relatively higher. But the way we do it is, okay, you're not roaming, you become a local IMSI, is a technical term in the market where you are, and you have a local point of presence there that makes you operate, that makes the latency to be very, very small, which is what you want for many of these devices. It's a technology game, really. It's an infrastructure game, right? Where you can, the way we look at it, we're competing against global corporations with billions of dollars of revenue, but we can be faster, we can be and we provide a better customer experience because of the way the network is built. So that's the key thing, and that's how the expansion has gone very well and keeps on going, right? The business keeps on growing at a very accelerated pace.
And now that you have this good, global footprint, which are the next challenges in terms of scaling, in terms of revenue? What is next?
I guess, well, revenue grows very healthily, and the trend seems to be accelerated, not increasing, right? So that's pretty good, and the CEO and the team are doing a fantastic job there. I think that it's really, and this is a personal perspective, not a board perspective, but I feel it's really entering the big leagues, right? It's really starting to make some noise towards the big corporations of the.
You're taking part of their pie now that they are starting to feel it, right?
Yeah, exactly. When you have this kind of growth and this kind of impact and noise in the market, of course they notice, right? And this could be good, this could be not so good. The company has to see how it managed. But I'm very optimistic on Flow, right? I actually had a board meeting yesterday, and I came out of it feeling like, this is
going well.
This is going well.
How much is the revenue, or you expect to have next year?
I don't think I can disclose that because it's not a listed company, but it's very healthy and it's jumping.
I imagine
this year.
If the big corporates are starting to feel the pain, it's going well. And then from it's very good to hear that. Congratulations, Percy, and also for doing all these changes and being able to move into the strategic side, leading to others to drive the business is also a very good experience. We have 10 minutes left. Let's keep focused. 5 minutes more in leadership, execution, and then the last 5 we close with lesson learned and advice. You have a lot of experience now, and you learn during the last 20 years in corporate from an investor or CEO as well. I would say more like the key best practices that you are applying in terms of leadership and execution.
Okay, that's a very good question, and I think it's leadership and execution is almost on a case by case basis, right? But the things that I find in common is, and I've learned, is being very honest, right? Very transparent with your team. You have to manage your team, but you also have to manage your board, your investors, right? All of this. And the more transparent you are, I think long-term things go the best, right? I think it's easy to fall into a trap of trying to be, trying to sell what you're doing as always under a positive light, right? And that's fine. You have to be optimistic to build a business. If you're not optimistic in your nature, you're probably not. You shouldn't be, building companies from scratch, right? Because it's a work where you're going against the probability, right? So. But at the same time, if you have a problem, talk to your board and say, I have a problem. If something is not going great with your team, don't waste time. Talk to the person or the people that are, not collaborating or whatever it is, and tell them, look, we need to fix this, right? I think that, and seems very obvious what I'm saying, but this is really a lesson learned about going, sometimes it's very easy to let your ego to drive how you lead, right? And you're thinking, well, what are they going to think about me? What's my board going to think about me? How is my team going to think about me? And you really have to put that on the side. It's not about you. Okay, you happen to be in the driver's seat, right? But you have a whole team supporting you and investors and board members, expecting things from you. So you have to understand that, while you're in the driver's seat, and of course you shouldn't crash the car, right? That you're just one more member of this whole structure, right? And then put yourself aside, and just when you say something, just put the business first and what you're trying to achieve, right? Well, another lesson or another good practice that I have is when something is important, don't assume it's understood. Repeat it many times, right? This is something I learned from a great mentor that I had, was the former CEO of Telecom, Michael Grane, and he was always repeating the same things. And then you feel like, it's like, I've been told this, but that's how you know it's important, right?
Yeah, I have a small business with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
We reached the 2 million, and it's not scalable like tech, and now we are trying to get in $2 million again. And it's been 10 years. And I'm still repeating the 3 rules to my brother. And my brother's like, why are you still repeating this? I said, because you cannot forget this, because he's in the operations, I'm outside of the business. I'm more a sort of business advisor now, really hands off. Just key meetings for some functions and that's it. But I always tell him, remember this rule, because there are some key principles that keep the strategy and the business healthy and sustainable in the long term. And if you forget that, you can go somewhere else and then you lose the focus.
Absolutely. And I think repeating the same thing keeps you focused, right, on those things, and keeps the team on top of certain things. Because a mistake I've made in the past, I communicated the stuff once, and then you assume, okay, they understood this is very important, right? And then maybe on the other side is just one more piece of information that is not very clear that is really the most important piece of information. But if you repeat it over and over, then it's like, among all this data and all these decisions and all of that, these are the few that really we should focus on, right? So I think that's, and it's connected to the other, it's connected to just saying your mind and saying what is important for you from a business perspective, not from a personal perspective, and saying it over and over, right? So I think that's another practice that always works. But then a lot is on a case by case basis, right? And I think a key thing about building a business and being the leader of the business, of course, you have to be on top of things, and you have to have meetings, and you have to have sales, and you have to have fundraising, but you have to leave yourself a space to think things over and over. I find that fundamental. Many of the answers of the building I'm building now, which is an AI company for telecommunications, happen because I go for a run, and then this is important, right? And then I come back, and then I talk to the team, and if you don't live, if you're working 24/7 doing things, then you're not leaving enough room for yourself to think about what you're doing, and this is very important, right? So that's, I think, another good practice.
And I would like to hear from you for founders who are preparing to get into Series B or Series C and beyond. What would you advise them?
I don't know if you can fake this. It needs to be real. But you have to have, at any stage, you have to have a very good understanding of the problem you're trying to solve. And that good understanding includes the unknowns, right? So look, this is what we're trying to solve. That's why we're building this company, to solve this. We really have spent all this time, all this focus in understanding what we're trying to solve and building a solution. There's these things that we don't know, that we have to find out, but that's how we're going to find out in the next stages of the game. So that's, for me, the key thing, right? Now when I look at founders, and it doesn't matter the stage, what makes a founder special, I think, and you want to support and you want to see them grow, is a deep understanding of what the problem they're trying to solve, and hopefully a passion for it as well. Something that connects it, not just like a rational understanding that, I'm connected to this because of that, right? In the case, for example, of what we're doing with Anga, I worked so many years in telecommunications on the other side, and I saw how complex it is to serve customers, to millions of customers, right, in a more traditional way. And I understand that problem from the inside, and I know that there's things that can be solved with AI in a very consistent way, which is sometimes the problem that operators have. They don't have enough consistency. So that's that's what we keep on thinking day in and day out about, right? How do we solve the telco problems in a way that can be repeated to infinite, basically, right? And that's what I would tell them, right? Look, don't at no point think you know everything, right? Keep on learning more about the problem. Keep on going back to what you're trying to do, and getting new perspectives on it. And it's, I think, one of the most fantastic things about, for me, right, going from the corporate world to the startup world, has been the speed of learning, right? I'm not saying you don't learn in the corporate world. Of course you do, right? But cycles seem to be kind of slow, right? You're thinking quarters, when you decide on a new project, it's normally a big project. Some cases could be, you taking years to implement, right? And it's fine because these are well-established business where you have to minimize risk, right? Which is more about protecting the existing business more than anything else, right? In the case of a startup where you're trying to create something out of nothing, right? The speed at which you need to learn is just, it's just very, very fast, and that's what makes it great. That's what I think I enjoy it so much, and the people that I've known, many people that have done that transition from corporate to startup, and I think, most of them enjoy or to do that transition successfully, you need to enjoy the rhythm of the startup. That is a completely different rhythm, right? It's like fast. It's, figuring out things every day, right? You can't be stuck, right? And you make mistakes. You have to try that they are not very costly mistakes, right? But you keep on learning every day, and that's what's fantastic. And that's what I would look on a Series A, B, C, founder. Okay, they've taken the business to this level. They've taken the revenue. Of course, you need to look at the financials. Are they gonna take it? They took the business to 20 million. Can they take it to 100 million? And what are the levers to do that? Of course, there's all this, more technical analysis, right? But what you always need, I think, is this deep understanding of what you're trying to do and the passion to do it.
That sounds, very compelling, advice. through all the journey. And yeah, I think it's a key principle. I'm the startup world as well. I'm CEO for a startup. I said to some friends, because I'm doing bootstrapping, there is this big chance to fail or not to fail. Me also, just it's not gonna happen, right? I said to them, but you know what? Doing this because I was in corporate, I have a business, as I mentioned. I've been doing other businesses, more services, but not a startup, a tech startup scalable, right? And I said to them, this is better than doing a master's degree. What I've learned, what I've done during the last 1 year and a half is insane. It's another speed. It's 24/7, of course. It's very demanding. But at the same time, you feel so energized and you feel so motivated every day because it's your own thing. And I think that's something that everyone across all the stages is feeling, as you said, because you are continuously learning, relearning, and redoing and improving. And now with AI, it makes everything more exciting because it's unlocking so much.
It's a great time to build. That's one of the reasons that got me building again last year, right? It felt like this is a great time to build. What you can do now, you couldn't do a few years ago. It's just an exciting time to be.
Well, thank you so much for your time. A lot of lessons learned here, good experience. Someone who started at corporate, someone who came from Bolivia, right, from LATAM, moving into London, and then creating this, successful business, stepping out from the CEO roles, moving into the board director role, so looking more at the strategy, and starting a new startup where learning and relearning is a key principle, and also managing and driving businesses with transparency. You said that, being transparent and leading teams, and also every stakeholders with that principle has helped you to be where you are today. Very, very well done. I'm very proud of you. Thank you so much for joining.
Sure. No, thank you very much, Mario. It's always, insightful to talk about oneself, right? I'm always a little bit uncomfortable doing it, but it's a pleasure to do it, and and thank you very much for this interview, and all the best in all your initiatives and efforts.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for the community and for the listeners to join us. Square Cycle is a community for strategic minds. We are starting this journey. We are around 400. Board directors, non-executive directors, fractionals, and also we have founders and investors. So this is for startups and scale-up people. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Percy. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mario. Take care.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. That's all for today's episode of Square Cycle, a community of strategic minds for startup and scale-up people. A big thank you to our guests for sharing their journey and insights. If you enjoyed this conversation, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or LinkedIn to stay connected with our upcoming episodes. I'm Mario Rivas with Tiffany Shown. Thanks for listening and see you next time.